Hello, everyone. Oh, thank you. It's a good night to see some films and talk about them. My name is Greg Salyer. If you don't know me, I'm the president of the Philosophical Research Society. I have the best job in the world. And you are at the Philosophical Research Society, founded by Manly Hall in 1934 for seekers in pursuit of wisdom. There's Kelly Carmena, our librarian who hates to be recognized. This is Mr. Nervous, our AV philosopher. There's Sharon Lineker, our director of marketing and media. Oh, there's Matthew Taylor. What are you doing here? What's your job? We have a new school that Matthew directs, interesting classes that are very affordable, non-degree. And like, what's your favorite class, Matthew?
Making sense of religion for believers, unbelievers, and the curious. Taught by Greg Salyer.
Oh, great. Well done. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to introduce my friend and colleague, Courtney Xiu. Now, Courtney, I just want you to listen to this. If you know Courtney, as you know, every day as we do, there's that Courtney who's sweet and kind and all that, and very supportive, like our biggest fan. And then there's a whole other Courtney. And let me tell you about the other Courtney that you don't know. I've spoken to his therapist and gotten no. Courtney Xiu is a prolific documentarian and experimental film artist with 80 films. 80. That's right. This is one of my favorite parts. His work has been featured in Newsweek, Filmmaker Magazine, IndieWIRE, Time Out New York, Vice, and The Ellen Show. Maybe he'll talk about that. He's a bum, a Dharma bum. So he's been everywhere, traveling around with his Hi8 and broken laptop. And he just loves film. And you'll be able to tell tonight. He works in numerous genres and has worked for all kinds of different people doing many different things. I mean, it's just too much. I'm sorry to be so broad here, but we like him very much, and we house the archive of his films here because we love him and we love his work. Please welcome Courtney Xiu.
Okay. Hey, we have a good team here right now. This is a beautiful group. It's a wonderful way. You guys are the first to know this. This is the first West Coast screening, of my knowledge, of either of these films, unless someone took them. Both of these films have been distributed and put out, and I don't know if someone else had screened like the whole or something without my knowledge, but to my knowledge, this is actually the first West Coast screening of either of these films, and that's really special to me. And under this roof, in the PRS, it's one of the like great honors of my life. And like, thank you, Greg. Like you're amazing, man. You're my idol. Absolutely adore you, and that was such a huge, just hearing you say all those things means the world to me. And everybody at the PRS, you know, I consider you guys family. Wes, love you, buddy, you know. And so, yeah, so if you guys went to the gallery, you clearly saw something that was pretty non-conventional. You saw a film that's challenging and intense, and as we were speaking earlier, it could invoke some sort of emotions, whether they're good or bad, but it's a challenging film. I will bridge the gap from why that film's screening there and why these more conventional documentaries are here. I will leave it at that, and we'll kind of break down, you know, the two films. They're both about 10 minutes, so they're rather painless. And we're going to start the night with something super cool. Again, you guys are like, this is a good group. Like, you guys are about to see something that's like really cool, really special, because no one in the world is about to see what you guys are about to see until like maybe next week when it comes out online. But you guys are about to see the trailer of the documentary that I just created. She's here right now. The artist in residency of PRS is Mandy Kahn, a brilliant poet. And we worked together, and I put together, a rather extensive document of, her work and her brilliance. And you will see the very first trailer of this. And we're going to start the night with that, and then we'll kind of get into it. So yeah, I think we might be good, Kelly, if you want to deal with those lights.
During meditation, I listen to the sound that's always ringing, the high bells of creation. When I asked my mother what that sound was, I'd listen as a small child in my bedroom. She told me there was nothing. I begged she listen with me, and we listened. I heard the air was tolling like a gold bell. She told me there was nothing.
My writing process when I'm working on a new poem is very open. It's almost meditative. I sort of go into the sort of no mind state, and a sort of new idea will come in. And over the last 6 months, I've noticed that more and more and more often, the piece that arrives is something about peace.
This is the truth about Mandy Kahn, as it has been written down. She's the author of 2 poetry collections, and her poetry is included in the Best American Poetry 2018. She frequently collaborates with composers to create new works that combine verse and classical music.
What I wanted to build with the piece was a piece that would bring us together, bring groups of people together, especially people who don't know each other, in a community interaction, literally building a bridge formation. So the audience comes together and they stand in 2 lines and they bridge.
Now experience the beauty and goodness of Mandy and her work. Please welcome Mandy Kahn.
I'll lay down my weapon first.
I'll lay down my weapon first.
I'll lay down my weapon first.
I'll lay down my weapon first. I'll lay down my weapon first.
I'll lay down my weapon first. I'll lay down my weapon first.
I'll lay down my weapon first.
Oh, wow, okay. Why am I here, and why am I presenting these films? That guy. I was like 19. No, I think I was 18. And this camera right there, that's the camera I made most of my, I think I made like 60 of those 80 films on that camera I'm holding in that hand. So anyways, I began making films when I was 6 years old. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details, but I'll give you some kind of reference points because I know some of you don't really know me that well. I wanted to be a filmmaker from the time I was born, from as far as I can remember, and when I was 6, one of my dear friends, Andrew, his parents had a home video camera, and we started making films. And that was like backyard filmmaking, and, you know, what happened was that creative spirit, we connected really, like, intensely to that creative spirit. It allows that growth. And so you start making films, and you start kind of developing ideas, and you get inspired by things that are kind of like most kids of that age aren't inspired by. And by the age of 12, I had already formed, we weren't incorporated, but we formed a production company at 12 with one of my best friends, Mike, and we made a whole slew of horror films, like remakes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th in our parents' backyard. Anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is it shows you kind of like where it came from. It was the moment I was born to like this was the process. And I know like my parents might have had like kind of an issue in the sense of like I couldn't be told what to do because I just knew that I needed to make films. That's all. If I can't make a film, if there wasn't, you know, a film to be made even at that age, it was game over. So by the time I reached around like 16 years old, my father, who you will see very shortly, was diagnosed with a really aggressive form of prostate cancer. And they gave him 2 months to live, which is really intense for, you know, a freshman in high school to have to deal with. I remember my brother and I got delivered that news that, you know, Dad was going to die, and like we had to prep for it. And it kind of like altered this course where I started observing life in this more documentarian sense. I was curious about that process, you know, like he's gonna die, and what on earth is death? And like I'm 16, you know, I'm a football player, you know, I'm drinking with my friends, like, but it started to like, and so all those horror movies that we started making, like when we were 12 and stuff, all the movies that I started making, like, became really kind of introspective, or I don't know, more of a kind of like a documentarian nature. So, that whole thing happened. We can talk about that later after you guys see the film. It's only 10 minutes long. Like, I'm sure y'all have some questions or something about it, but that can be explained better after you see the film. When I was 18, and the reason why this is such a huge honor for me to be here, and even at this podium and here, a man named Manly P. Hall came into my life. And one of my best friends, Jeff, you know, he handed me The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And I was already into kind of mysticism and, you know, paranormal things and occultism, theory, just everything of that nature. And I found The Secret Teachings of All Ages, and it blew my mind. Not only was it the best, it's so easy to read, and it's so filled with beauty. It's one of the greatest books ever written in my eyes. And it became this huge part of my life, and I didn't even know at that time or up until last year, that this place even existed. And thankfully I found out. So Manly has always been like this huge hero, and in fact, when my father was suffering, I was reading a lot of chapters of Secret Teachings and Initiates of the Flame and different Manly texts, and it was like, they helped me. It was this like weird kind of like guidance. I don't know. My father was a reverend, so Initiate of the Flame and all that stuff was kind of like pretty profound for me. Got to Pratt when I was 18. Didn't like it at all. I hated film school. Really miserable. Drank a lot and just was like alone, just like in my own head. Just like, I didn't like this. See, I didn't like my film professor. I didn't like what was happening. So it was better for me to kind of like go off and do my own thing, which sounds so angsty, and just saying that, it's like, it's so stereotypical, but it was how I felt. So I ended up leaving film school and starting to travel the world and documenting everything with that camera right there. Everything. This was before cell phones, or at least before iPhones, where everyone has theirs. Tragedy, beauty, things that inspired me. Stuff that I would never release just because it's just too sad and heartbreaking. But the camera was always running. And I eventually got a phone call. I think it was when I was living down in New Orleans, from my mother, and she notified me that Dad was finally sick. He was like finally like not finally sick, but finally at the end of his days. And this was nearly 8 years after his diagnosis, which is crazy. He lived 7 years after they gave him 2 months. And so I flew home and stayed with my parents, and I think I was 21. And the whole process of seeing your father kind of go through hospice care and kind of like, he eventually died. And seeing it through that kind of like documentary filmmaking eye, it was so fascinating. It wasn't like morbid, because my father, as you'll see, has a great sense of humor. So we kind of like helped each other out. He asked me to make the film. I said, no, I don't want to make your film. And then like a month later, I agreed, because I figured like it would be a good way for us to connect again, and it became what it became. So I became a documentary filmmaker, and the insanity began. A lot of travel, a lot of just like hard living. I was living as a chef. I went to culinary school to support myself, so I was chefing to make ends meet, and I finally got completely burnt out. Traveled way too much, and then for my chef years, it's just like no sleep, just nonstop intensity, and I was missing making films so bad, because when you're a chef, you don't have that time. That's 19 hours in the kitchen, and then you don't have time to make what you want to make. So anyways, I'll wrap this quick part up before we start up. And I moved out here it's been now just over a year. I've never wanted to be in LA, ever. I'm an East Coaster. I then was living in Stockholm for a while. LA is the last thing on my plate, because if you saw the films that, or the film in the gallery, you'll see where kind of my brain is, and that is not Hollywood. It's I come from a school of like Jonas Mekas or George Kuchar and Jack Smith, not Hollywood. So I always vowed to my friends I would never go to Hollywood. I ended up coming to Hollywood because I figured, like, why not? 46 of the 50 states, I'm not getting along in any of them. I got to come here. And I got here, and within, like, a month of getting here, one of my dear friends, Travis, was like, hey, Court, have you heard about the Philosophical Research Society? I said, no, what is this? He says, oh, it's Manly P. Hall's place. Oh, God, I got to check that out. And I came here, and here we are. And it's such they've given me so much, and such beauty and friendship and kindness. And I know it's not supposed to sound like a promotion, but I can't, the love in my heart for this place is that big. And what you see now is, after all of those stories is what you get, I've made it through the flames, and now, we're here, and I love being here, and we're home, and it's a beautiful thing. Now, the first film I'm going to show is my father's film. It's 10 minutes long, and we can talk about it after for a split second if you want. It's been screened all around the world, and it's supported by the Prostate Cancer Foundation. It's about a man weeks away from death, but I don't want that to make anyone nervous. You're not going to see a morbid film. You're going to see a film that celebrates the joy of living. You're going to see a film that celebrates sense of humor. And even in the darkest times, you're going to see a film that's like, it's a celebration of life. And I have to, I was telling Greg earlier today, I have to preference this because I was at a screening in Pittsburgh back in like 2015, and they introduced the film as if it was like, you guys are going to see a guy die. Everyone's like, ah. And you're like, no, it's not that at all. That's not the theme. And it's a very pleasant experience, I promise you. So with that said, I know my dad's here in spirit, and he's so honored to be here with us. But yeah, let's do this. So this is my film, My Dying Day, which I made in 2007 on that camera. That little guy right there. All right, you ready, Wes? Yeah, did it. These lights okay? Oh, okay. Oh, wait a second. Oh, I already said all that. Oh, I did. This is interesting. Manly has a book called Philosophy of the Sick, which Brooke sold to me. And I hadn't heard about this one before. And I was sifting through it, preparing for this. And I found this quote. And what I just kind of explained to you guys before, this quote goes with this. I'm going to read this out to you because just don't read it on the screen. Until the first dizzy spell, we were comfortably agnostic with atheistic ambitions, but in that distressful moment when the body failed to sustain our self-assurance, we developed numerous reasonable doubts on a number of subjects. Was it possible we had waited too long to cultivate the resources of our higher nature? Was it too late to begin enjoying life? That is, I feel like Manly saw this film. That's solid. That makes me so happy. And it was like one of the first paragraphs. So I had to share that before we show the film. So here we go, guys. Let's see if this...
Here's one of our residents who has just passed away. And he was in a lot of pain and agony, and this is kind of a blessing that we see that he has passed on. And the staff has asked me to come in and pray over him. Oh, Heavenly Father, bless this your child. Grant him your peace and comfort and entry into your eternal kingdom, as you promised us to all those who turned our lives over to you. Recognize this child as your redeemed. Grant him entry into your heavenly bliss, where he will reside with you and the saints forever and ever. Through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Began on September 19th of the year 2000. I received a phone call that my doctor from Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital told me that his tests had confirmed that yes, I have prostate cancer, and at the age of 47 it had gotten into my hip, my pelvis, and my spine. When I asked the doctor how much time do I have, he didn't want to tell me. He didn't want to answer that. I guess as a philosophy that if you tell your patients how long they have to live, they're going to fulfill that prophecy. Well, I pressed him because I had a big job. I had a lot of irons in the fire. I had 2 kids going to college. And that is when he told me that I have 2 months or maybe 24 months, depending upon how my body reacts to a certain hormone therapy that he wanted to try. I've come into a funeral home here to make my final arrangements, if need be, to give my family a head start. And I've selected this particular funeral home because it's next to my house and near my grave plot. So I've come in to look at and perhaps select
some of the items that are needed and some of the arrangements for the a funeral and memorial service and whatever else is needed for final arrangements. We find that many folks are not availing themselves of early detection of skin cancer, prostate, ovarian cancers and such. I learned the hard way. I was 47 years old and finally diagnosed with prostate cancer, and some of the researchers seem to feel that I had the propensity in me that it could have been detected some 8 years prior. But because I was under 50, and because I told my doctors I didn't have cancer in my family, they felt there was no need to test me for it. That was back in the year 2000. This month now is month number 72. Thanks to faith, prayer, and good medicine, my friends have told me. But this thing has spread, and my doctors have told me there's no way to stop it. And I thought that my visit here may help my family get over a bit of a hurdle, get some of the work done for them, because the day is to come that, because I may have outlived the warranty that most of the clinicians have granted me.
What I have in front of me, these are wind chimes. Where I'm pointing with my pinky right here is a small cap. I want to say it has like a cavity in there where we put a little portion of cremated remains in there. So this in itself would be an urn, and this sundial is a family urn. The sundial can be removed. If I did that where my hand is, this is all empty, where multiple people would be placed in the pedestal of the urn.
I can see where this business could be fun, Bill.
It's interesting.
In an odd way, this could be fun business.
It's interesting. It's less morbid than people make it out to be.
No, you make it fun.
No,
I'm kind of looking forward to it.
It's much less morbid than people think it is.
Well, Bill, thank you very much. This is
all right.
I appreciate your time.
Okay.
You got me as a customer.
Okay.
Death was never really addressed in my household growing up. There was never really any item that anybody in my family really discussed.
Here we are with a dear woman whose disease has progressed such that many times these people can't even pray for themselves, and so our chaplains and our deacons will come up here and pray for those, and pray a prayer for them, for their comfort and for their peace, and for God to relieve their pain. It's such a blessing to have these people with us, because otherwise we probably wouldn't be driven to prayer so much.
Oh, you're so handsome.
Oh, you say that to all the boys.
I don't think so. I didn't have that many.
Well, it's nice to have you up here. You know, it's awful hot outside.
But I can't get used to it. I just try and try.
Well, we're lucky to have you here.
You know what this is?
What's that?
My father was drunk and he saved me.
You did?
He was fucking good. Oh, I thank you very much.
Okay.
I love you very much.
I love you, Teresa. Thank you again. Now, what's his name?
Ronnie.
Brownie. Oh, we have behind us the king.
Oh, yeah, that's Chico.
Chico?
Chico.
You sure have a lot of friends. I've never done this before, you know.
That's a grad doing my nails.
You know, us pastors have to do, this is about pretty much the limit I'll have to do with you.
Look at your son. He's taking pictures. Look at him. Blackmail. Pastor Brad's been a big help to me and a lot of other people. He's really been, I don't know how to explain it. He's been like a moral instrument in my life. A great instrument.
How about that one right there? There's some stuff missing right there.
Which one? Which one?
Ron is like, oh, shoes.
Oh, my blue pants.
Oh, no, so what do you do now?
He stirs nail polish on my new pants.
Don't ask me to do a pedicure.
And your mother and I, we hugged and cried for a few moments. And And then after that, we gathered ourselves and embarked upon a journey, and that has brought us to today.
Here is my cemetery plot, right here, that we bought soon after my diagnosis. When my doctor told me that I may have 2 months to 24 months to live, we called the town hall and found if there were any plots available next to our other relatives here in the cemetery. We were fortunate enough to get a few right here. And this is month number 70, and I still haven't needed the cemetery plot, which says something itself right there. But it's here at the ready, under a beautiful purple rhododendron tree. Is my plot. About 1 o'clock, and I'm feeling the effects of the pain medication that I'm on, just to help me overcome some of the surgery that was done on me. But as of today, I'm feeling kind of loggy from the pain medication that I've been on, and I might stop taking it within a day or so to try to get back in the saddle again and get around like a normal person again.
I realized a couple things about that, and I wanted to make mention before, but maybe now I should. My father was dying in caring for other people in hospice care, and none of those patients knew. I found that to be one of the strongest poetic kind of moments of that entire film. Well, I knew it going into it, but it just really kind of hit me now when he was talking to Teresa, or they're all on their way out. But he was actually, I don't know, I haven't kept up with these people, but perhaps he had passed even before they did. But he was the one comforting them. I found that's glorious. My father's kind of religious take on things was really intense. He was a reverend, a Baptist, and that was a serious part of his life. But I think what the beauty of that film that for me is you see a child in there. He's so intense, and that's where I get my intensity, I believe, from, or stubbornness. But there's a child. There's this wonderful sense of humor in child, and optimism, and love for it. And we can get into this deeper later. I'll really make this short so we can get on to the next one. But it was his idea to go shopping for a coffin on film. It was not mine. I would never have done that. I'd never even proposed that. It was also his idea. There's talks about like filming his last days. I would never have done that, and I didn't. But that was him. I see him and myself every day, and I'm like so excited about it because that sense of humor and that weirdness is so cool. It's not fully accepted in, everyday moments, but, it's super cool. It's a very good thing. Now this one, let's get on. Let's have some fun. This is The Hole. Now, The Hole is the most mysterious, forgotten neighborhood in all of New York City, and I will argue to the ground with anyone who says it's not. It is. It is 30 feet below sea level, and we're talking about New York City, not New York State. We're talking about New York City. 30 feet below sea level. It's a mafia body dumping ground. It's home of the Federation of Black Cowboys. Rufus right there. I'll show you that. And what am I missing? Yeah, live chickens run on the streets. They have cesspools and not sewers. Very little is written about The Hole. Very, very little. As Matthew and I were talking earlier, you can find like 1 or 2 articles, like maybe a New York Times article from '91 or something of like a mafia case that happened there, but very little. So I had heard about this place, this mysterious place, when I was living in New Orleans post-Katrina. And the lower Ninth Ward at that moment was still kind of, in trouble. It was still kind of, it had a lot of issues from the storm. And someone presented, I can't remember who it was, someone presented me a story about the lower Ninth Ward of New York City. And first of all, that's strangely offensive to me, but that's ridiculous, but it caught my ear. I was like, what? Because I've lived in New York on and off for about 14 years, and I've never heard about this place. And that kind of like ego is like, what is this? How have I not heard about this? And so anyways, my friend Billy happened to be living down there too, and he was a film producer, and we decided that we were going to make a horror film about The Hole. And it was going to be a giallo. And so we were going to make this Dario Argento style, like very stylish with a lot of colors, horror film about this mysterious neighborhood in New York City. And we wrote the whole thing down on a napkin. And it got us so inspired that he flew back to Bushwick, where he was living. I stayed in New Orleans, and we talked via email, and finally he was like, we got to do this. Let's get out here and let's do this. And let's make this film. So I flew up, stayed on his floor, as is my deal, I guess. You got to put up with me. I'm going to be sleeping on your sofa or your floor, I guess. That's the thing. And we decided to go and visit. And we went there together with our cinematographer, and we realized that it's actually glorious. It's just beautiful, though it's a part of America that's so forgotten, so ignored. And there's no one working for it, but it's a 5-block radius. It's wild to me, especially what we're seeing like in the Bahamas or something. Not that it's any sort of there's no connection, but it's still it's this forgotten place where even the cops don't patrol it. No one wants to deal with it. It's its own thing. And I couldn't help but be like, dude, let's forget this giallo horror film. Let's just start rolling camera and let's make this a documentary. And we did. And so we stayed, and we made The Hole in about, I think, a month. It's really, at that point, it was really dangerous at night. And we had to be very, very careful. But all of the residents, when we were filming, were super happy. They were curious about us. These 3 kids coming through here with cameras, and they're more confused about us. What on earth are you guys doing? Because it's their everyday life. And they all had such beautiful optimism and a love for life and a joy. And we made this and wrapped it, and it it was awesome. And this experience of making this film, I'll never forget, but it's one of the... There was a moment when I stopped making films because I thought, like, well, I had made the whole with Billy, but I had made it, so I'm going to stop. Enough's enough. That's pure stupid ego, but like, enough's enough, because I had already made what I felt to be like my biggest thing. And this was 10 years ago, but I hope you guys like this. This one's fun. This is a great beauty. And I wrote there a cinematic metaphor. There is a metaphor here, and as like Werner Herzog once said, like, it's a metaphor for something that I don't yet know. There's a metaphor in here somewhere. I'll leave it to some student in NYU to like figure this one out. But I will give you a quick side note, and then we'll start it. Billy was the best to work with. He was the more conventional filmmaker. So he was the one who would kind of like pull me back if I wanted to get a little too crazy, or like maybe I wanted to document something more, and he wanted to keep it a little more conventional. So there's a shot in this movie that makes me so happy, and I'm calling it out now, of just the nose of a horse. And we hold on it for a bit. And there's a poetic moment there that I have trouble describing. I can't describe it. There's something that makes me so happy, and that was Billy's one thing that he gave me when we were editing. He said, Court, I'm not going to let you make your own film because it would be way too weird, but I'll give you this. We're going to give you that shot. I thought, this is very nice. So Billy was kind of like the navigator of like making a very awesome conventional short narrative documentary. And yeah, it's a beautiful one. I hope you guys like it. It's 10 minutes long. It's pretty awesome. Thanks.
Do it again?
Sure, yeah, a couple more times.
When I was a kid, my friend's house was so underground. We used to stand on the sidewalk to put Christmas lights on his roof. I raised pigeons since I'm a kid. My grandfather had pigeons before me. One of the guys that has the pigeons with me, Mike Tyson, very big pigeon lover, came from this neighborhood. Chester.
When was that, last year?
What's that?
When we found that body?
2 years ago, right?
2 years ago? The hole has a really interesting, background. It goes back to when the gangsters used to hang out down here, and they'd find dead bodies all over the place. I'm serious. And this was, I guess they say, the mob's neighborhood.
Okay, hello, I'm Rufus. And I'm 82 years old. God bless. I've been in New York for years and years and years and years. And I've seen a lot of things. And I never would have thought that I would see a place like the hole in the wall. I call it mostly the hole in the wall. In Howard Beach, between Howard Beach and Brooklyn. To look at the place now and think back, this is when I first went down there and stuff like that. It reminded me so much of the country. And, you don't find too many places like that in New York, And I have dreams about it practically every week that I have dream about the horses and about the guys that I hung out with for so long, It's like a time machine where you're going back in history. You come over here and you'll still see things. You'll still see cowboys riding horses down the streets. It's a very interesting neighborhood with a lot of history.
This whole neighborhood over here is flooded. As you drive down the streets, go down Ruby Street and the other streets, you'll see giant floods where it looks like you'll see ducks. You'll see ducks in the flood.
Down here, there are no sewers. We have what you call, what's that called? Cesspool. When you know it's down in the ground, you can't throw paper in the toilet. So it's when I first got here, I said, wow, you can't, what? Huh, come on.
I'm born and raised in the country. I had to go to our house on the outside. These houses in the city. And they still got a hole someplace the stuff I had to go through. You know what I mean? Come on. This is 20th century.
A lot of these homes, the cesspools are so old that they burst underground, and the sewage just goes into the earth. We grow tomatoes, we grow squash, we grow zucchini.
Now, do you ever feel that the soil might be kind of contaminated from not having sewerage here?
No, I think if anything, waste is a manure, which is a fertilizer. So.
That old town, dark paper tile, wrapped in Long Beach Tower, in the magic hour,
it's a deserted area. So anytime you get a deserted area, you got to have some element of crime in the area. And it's very easy to do anything down here because there's nobody here. This is a daytime neighborhood. This isn't the neighborhood you're going to walk in at night.
McDonald's and it's passing by. Next, naturally I have a car park here, so I look back and I see something like a feet. I thought it was somebody drunk, So I came back and see that the person wasn't moving. So I went out to the block. They call the guy the mayor, Mando. They call him the mayor of the block. And I went and got him, and we came down. He checked it out. He went and looked at the guy. The guy was gone, dead.
Somebody winds up down here, they're from another part of town, and they just bring them down here to get rid of them.
Bodies? I don't know bodies here. I mean, if anything, you're going to find bodies by New Lights Avenue, by the cemetery.
Surveyors up there every 5 or 6 times a year, and surveying the land and stuff like that, but nothing happened. And that's been going on for years and years.
A worst problem that we're having down in the hole now is people coming and dumping their garbage, that it really makes a bad image, and people coming down, turning around, they see all the garbage over there. Plus, my house is up for sale, and when there's a lot of inappropriate activities going on, buyers don't, they look at it and they turn around and go right back out.
There's a future. I think as soon as they put the sewage in, you got a real estate broker bought up all this property over here. So if a real estate broker came in to buy the property, there must be some sort of a value. Otherwise, he wouldn't invest a fortune to buy the property. I would love it to come back the way it was years ago with farms. Because it's nicer to see animals walking the street than some of the other animals that walk around here.
Life is not perfect. It's a hell of a long ways from being perfect. You're going to always have your ups and downs with, and you abandon the place for a better life,
I am a bullet, dream my ties are closed. my best friend, my neighbor. So gotta say hello. He don't know. Change when we're talking. These are my neighbor walls. Never noticed it's nothing. Never noticed it's what he don't want. Hallelujah. In a hallelujah. In a hallelujah. We all know.
That's the hole. I passed by it in January for the first time in these 10 years. And it was really interesting because all of those puddles were ice. It was very strange. We're going to wrap this up. And then, we don't have to spend too much time here. If you guys want to ask me something, feel free. But we'll wrap this up because I'm regarding what was going on in the gallery and how that's dealing with what you just saw today. Actually, you know what? This picture's better. Look at me. Oh, that's me in Appalachia. That's a cool one. I was on set of a horror movie. There was no train coming, don't worry. I'll leave it at that, though. That's Paris's vest. That thing's cool. I would like to get one of those one day, but probably can't wear it. So I began, as you well know now, my documentary career in just filming anything and everything, and 80 films, as Greg mentioned, and that's very true. And there's probably some more that just have never been released or archived or anything. In 2017, I was living in Stockholm and I was making music videos, and I hit a burnout period where this is a scary moment for any artist. You just don't have any ambition anymore. You don't have any drive. And I thought about going back to being a chef again, or I don't know, becoming an Uber driver. Nothing wrong with any of it, but just I wanted to give up on making film. And I was going to hide away and not come home. I was going to hide away in Stockholm even after the visa had expired. And I came home and just had maybe 6 months of nothingness, of just, I'm not going to do anything. If I'm not going to make films, which has been the biggest part of my life since I was 6, since forming my first company when I was 12, if I can't do that and my own brain and my own ego is not allowing me to do this, if my soul is telling me not to do it anymore, I don't know, at this point, we're going to just retire and, hang out. It was this very scary moment. I think a lot of us can relate to it, but I'm just being honest in saying it and just kind of throwing it out there. I think a lot of people kind of try to sugarcoat it or not talk about it, but that's how I felt. I just needed I hit my wall. So within those months, I realized that all of these really cool things were happening. I was finding myself being more interested in the kind of the spirit of film, the spirit of cinema, and not cinema itself. It sounds so strange, but the creative spirit in cinema. I would watch a movie and feel it, and not because of emotions, but I could watch a Giuseppe Andrews film, or something by Harmony Korine, or like, but you'd feel it, you'd hit it, and you'd be like, wow, that is an energy, that is a spirit. And I would watch like a lot of George Kuchar's weather diaries and be like, something's happening here. All he's doing is filming the sky and, what he's eating every day. And, a Jonas Mekas film, he's just filming his everyday life. But there's this like really profound thing happening. And no one talks about it. It's really strange. I'm sure if you were at like a film school right now and you're in like your senior class, they could be like kind of examining why like a Brakhage film would talk to you, or like why Jack Smith's like Flaming Creatures of Scotch Tape would talk to you. But I felt like there was this really big spirit coming through. And I've always been making, like, if I couldn't be making The Whole or all of the other documentaries, I would be filming nonetheless anything. And I've always had this kind of like tendency to make experimental work. But now knowing that spirit and that kind of like creative drive that's new, it started helping me go into this new direction. And so, after meditating, or I've astral projecting, or my dreams are a big thing for me. I would come out of it and be like, wow, this is really profound, and why did that make me feel so good? Or like, what I just witnessed is really profound, but it's not something that I could have friends put on costumes and act out, because it's not that. It's not that kind of, it's a whole other realm. It's otherworldly, but it still has this emotion into it. And again, getting back to Brakhage, he knew that. So that's how the film in the gallery came about. That's the last film in the series of maybe 40 of films of that style, where I would wake up every morning and be so excited about the way that the sunlight was reflecting on the snow. And I would run out there, and it was like knee-deep snow, and just really get in there and film the way that was reflecting, and then get back. And I didn't know what was happening. I had no idea what was going on. And when I was editing, I know it's not because it's like, oh, this is experimental, this is cool. I could screen this at like the background of like a band playing or something. It had nothing to do with that. There was this very profound, important aspect that's like the heart of cinema. That's what cinema is. I can't fully explain it. And I believe that those films and that film that's playing in the gallery is just as important, and has as much emotion as the narrative ones here, because they all came from the same spirit. They all came from the same place. If I couldn't film Paris right there, or Rufus, or my father, or the countless amount of other people that I've filmed and made documentaries about, I will try to make bigger films. And I mean bigger in a different sense. I don't mean bigger in budget, because that's few and far between. But the soul of the creative spirit and the soul of cinema. And that's about where I'll leave it, but I think that needs to be kind of preached more. If I was ever to teach a film class, if you're missing that, like, probably don't make a film. It sounds harsh and horrible, but that's where I would stand on that. You have to have that, and you have to feel that. If I tried to paint a picture right now and I didn't feel it, it would just be pointless. And I call those films that are in the gallery right now, and a lot of the stuff that's archived here, is multi-dimensional documentaries. Because they're documents, but they're not in the most narrative, conventional way. And I think that goes with any form of medium. If you have to have that kind of higher level of thought, and not that, it just has to happen. You have to be so like fired up about this crazy idea, and you go ahead and execute it. That is the beauty of being like an artist, and that's like, yeah, I mean, that's that. I was trying to, like kind of bridge the gap, and that's as best as I can. And I'm so honored to have like all of this stuff screened here. It's so amazing. It's like a dream. But I hope you guys liked those 2 films. They're pretty awesome, but they're pretty different. And I hope you guys like what's going on in the gallery too, because that's like kind of where I'm at now. So you got to see a film that I made in like 2007, and now where we're at now in the gallery. So yeah, anyways, I'll stop there. Thank you, Wes, and thank all of y'all. Thank you, Greg. This thing's yeah, you guys are amazing. It's so cool that you're here. I'm like so thrilled that you're here. It's so cool.